Okay, Atnafu. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm fine. How are you, Mr. Yasin? Everything all right?
Good, good, good. We've been discussing a lot of issues, but one issue that we didn't touch on today we want to talk about is who are Ethiopia's friends and foes. We always discuss about, and we've seen uh, the no more movement or not no more groups that who are collective of individuals and government, let's be honest, who came together and who pushed back the narrative of basically the international pressure that says that there should be ceasefire, there should be peace and negotiation, there should be fair, I mean, free access for the humanitarian aid. Um, so, having said that, we have seen that people went to the extreme of pushing the Western mentality. So, what do you think about the narrative of the No More movement, and who are Ethiopia's friends and foes?
Um, well, uh, Thank you, Yasin. I think this is one of the topic, it's probably the main topic in the on the side of the international relationship of Ethiopia and the diplomatic relations of Ethiopia that people need to debate. This is a basic question because it changes the whole dynamics of the Ethiopian relation with the rest of the world. Um, we have seen the no more movement, uh, which is pretty much um, trying to forge the Western countries, the United Nations institutions, and others as enemies of Ethiopia, which I believe is not going to help Ethiopian and Ethiopian interest at all. Yes, there are issues that countries may be biased because uh, we have to understand that every country's primary interest is to protect its own interest, period. That every country works, every diplomatic relationship, every country to country relationship works for to advance the best interest of each country, and it's up to the Ethiopian government to protect the Ethiopian interest, not America, not British, not European Union, or any other country as such. So if you have to stand by your own, you have to be firm, but you have to communicate well and explain what your point of view and your side of story correctly to the international community so that the international community will be behind you. Um, but history is showing us that uh, ever since the 1974 revolution, which Derg came into power, and before that, as we all know, during Haile Selassie time, Ethiopia has been benefiting from non-alliance, neutral position. And King Haile Selassie had a very good relationship with the Americans. He had a very good relationship with the Soviet Union back then, uh, with both East and West, and with Arab countries and others too, and Israel too. It was very, when you see it diplomatically, those days, it was hot fight between Israel and the Middle East countries. Haile Selassie has never took position on that, but he was friends with Israel, and he was friends with Arab countries and Palestinians too, because the philosophy of the foreign relationship of Ethiopia back then was led by the best diplomats, the world class diplomats. uh, whom they know what they are doing to the best interest of the Ethiopian people. Um, so when Haile Selassie was overthrown illegally, the Americans in the West were against the Dirk, which they should, honestly, because that's a military government that's almost overthrow the monarchy. It has been for half century in Ethiopia uh, of Haile Selassie's regime, and it was not easy to transform that monarchy to the military dictatorship. Also, Dirk didn't come by force. The revolution started by the youth and who wanted seeking change. It was hijacked by the military government, and Haile Selassie was overthrown. And as you remember, back then, Somalia was under Said Barre trying to be prepared to invade Ethiopia. Um, uh, Somalia was prepared for 10 years with the Soviet Union back then. And Derg knew once there was instability in Ethiopia, the Somalia was prepared to invade Ethiopia because we had less than 33,000 whole army, including police back then, very few. And compared with what the Somalis had, it was nothing. So Derg requested the the um, the fighter planes from America, which was already purchased during Haile Selassie time. But the Carter has been blamed for so many years for denying that. They said no, but they didn't consider Derg as a legitimate government for good reasons, because they overthrow the government illegally. Um, so the Ethiopians felt that they were betrayed by America. Um, but it was not necessarily, in my view, a betrayal. It was the balancing of the government. The government became a military dictatorship, and that military dictatorship later announced uh, communism, and the Soviets came from Somalia to Ethiopia, and there was a power shift. Everything was shifted, and that bloody war took place in 1976. Um, so people think that as a betrayal. And the other thing was, even during the Second World War, when Italy invaded Ethiopia, uh, the League of Nations back then uh, couldn't denounce the invasion of Italy uh, after 4 years after the defeat of the Adwa. They came back, and they controlled Addis Ababa and pretty much the majority of the cities and countrysides of Ethiopia. And again, Ethiopians are thinking that they were betrayed too. But as the rule of the world back then, we have to understand history that even 1980s, not 1880s, there was a scramble for Africa, and all the Western countries divided Africa. Take this part, Somalia for Italy, this part for British, Ethiopia for Italy, and so on and so forth. It's called Scramble of Africa. They had a convention in Berlin to divide African countries among themselves, and that was the rule of the day. Uh, so the Ethiopians now are mentioning all those things and saying that the Westerns um, has been abandoning Ethiopia and betraying Ethiopia for many historical instances. But my view is pretty much most of the failures or diplomatic failures by our own governments, be it Dirk or um, the current government, The problem is created by our own government, diplomatic failure to make the world understand the Ethiopian perspective. That's what I see it. So, but this
Okay.
movement is
So
not very.
you cover a lot. You
Yeah,
cover a lot from someone that they very familiar about Ethiopia-Somalia war, the history of Haile Selassie and how he captured the international
yeah,
community, how he even brought the African Union to Addis Ababa,
yeah.
how when he's some of the speeches that he made in the
Mhm,
UN, how it became even songs.
mhm.
So, because he get the goodwill of the international community at the time.
Right.
At the same time, on the other side, from Somali perspective, my uncles and all that, I will argue they did diplomatically one of the best challenge to Ethiopia, even though they were underdogs.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that war, whatever the case was, when Mengistu came, as you said it rightly, he lost the support of the West. He joined the East temporarily. He stabilized the economy, but the failure of lack of development and everything else, how he basically start owning everybody the property, the land,
Mhm.
all that thing put Ethiopia into a different scrutiny, and until the failure of even defending quote unquote Ethiopia at the time from Somalia, who were building up. So we're not gonna rehash that history, but the point to what you are making was you have to have a strong diplomats and a strong foreign policy that is stable, that is reliable, because the basically you don't have as you put it through. And somebody else that we should get an example was is Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, he was friends with both the West
Mhm.
and even Fidel Castro and Gaddafi and all that, and he openly say that okay, and the West was respecting him. It's not that they say that if you are not friends with what you call Fidel Castro, we're not gonna be friends with you. And he said that no, you don't choose our friends and you don't choose our foes. So the country has to choose friends and foes. Fine. Abiy has chosen to be friends with Sias, who the rest of the world sees differently. Um, but right now, what I've seen then and is confusing is the Ethiopians that who became to the West, who want to adopt the Western, buys the Western democracy, buys the Western ideology of freedom of human rights, of freedom of speech, freedom of electing whoever you want to, is all suddenly beating the drum beats of the countries like China, countries like countries that we don't even tested before in terms of
Mhm.
democratically. So when the prime minister and his government is agitating or saying that no more Western interference, and all suddenly the West, that is basically your economy depends on your you want to basically copy their constitutions, understand. So it is unnecessary messaging the way I see it. Yes, you need to push back sometimes your friends, but to make them an enemy, it is a bit extreme and a bit immaturity. Uh, and that's one of the reasons that it's a good segue for this, for the Brigade and his the TBLF's messaging at the beginning of the war, and how they had more experience in terms of international arena,
Mhm.
and how the messaging get confused, and how I've been internally I hear a lot of complaints about very prominent people saying that the prime minister's foreign policy of Ethiopia is disaster. Uh, there's no consultation. Sometimes it looks like a one-man show. Only one individual is running the show. So how do we then analyze from a perspective of outsiders? Um, mm, is it a good idea, first of all, to challenge and then compare both in this short period of the war that's happening between the government of Ethiopia versus the TBLF?
Yeah, that's a key point you raised, Yasin. Yeah, nowadays, what surprised me is not only the weaknesses that you mentioned from the federal government side or the prime minister himself, but the people who expect them to be uh, aware of what liberal democracy is, and what the competent diplomacy is, who are living and enjoying the freedom of the countries they live in, like US, Canada, Western Europe, or anywhere else, to try to denounce these countries are abandoning Ethiopia or betraying Ethiopia. And they cited historical events that what I tried to mention before. Um, and when they say that, they on the parallel side, they are saying that the current government and the party and the prime minister is the best suit leader who is a nationalist for the Ethiopian interest. They are saying it indirectly that way. But you properly cited it. The people, even who are from inside the government, knows it. Um, this prime minister's foreign policy is a disaster. There's no doubt about it. That's what it gets us here, be it with war with Tigray or conflict with Tigray or the diplomatic crisis with the West, when the international community at large, not only on the West, the international community at large is the result of the disaster foreign policy advanced by the prime minister himself. I say it by the prime minister himself. We have seen from different leaks of information from the inside that nobody knows. Even the foreign minister doesn't know the roadmap of the Ethiopian foreign policy going on by the prime minister. You know it. You also faced it. When he went to Eritrea, nobody knew what he has agreed with Isaias Afwerki, with the Eritrean government. What is it? Everybody was happy that peace was forged. I was happy too. You were happy too. Everybody was happy. No doubt about it. But what is it about? What is the relationship? When two countries are having a relationship, there must be an agreement signed between the two governments in a very transparent way. But nobody knew what's inside. Nobody except himself and few confident people that are closer to him, even ethnically closer to him. When he goes to Somalia, the same thing. Even recently, there was information that I heard. Uh, Shimalis Abdissa, who is the president of Oromia, and the Dr. Brhanu
The
went to,
military.
yeah, the military leader went to Somalia and met the Somalia prime minister. So what is it? There was no foreign minister there. There was no any diplomat there. And what did they talk about? So all this, when you bring it together, will tell you that the problem started when Abiy Ahmed, Isaias Afwerki, and Formar Jomed tried to make a hidden alliance. Sometimes they call it confederate, sometimes they call it something else. So,
The economic integration of Horn of
the
Africa.
Kushite, sometimes they call it, when he goes to Somalia, they talk about Cushitic dynasty.
You know what, Atnaf, that's a good point. Let's talk about the Cushitic alliance.
Oh
That's a
man,
good thing.
tell me that. You know
It's
it
good
better
for
than
Ethiopia anyway. So,
yeah.
but that's an extremely very important point from somebody like me who analyzes the political and my field is political economist. So what they did is a good idea, but came with bad intention.
That's
Uh,
what I'm saying.
so the bad intention is uh, if you don't inform your friends about what you are doing diplomatically, if you did something with the West does not like blindly something they don't know and just cut off
Yeah.
guard and have no there was no consultation with the West,
Mhm.
no advanced notification saying that this is what we are doing. It was just basically him and Sayas cooked something up and they went with formaggio and then all suddenly everybody's panicking. What's going on? This is too fast for us. I was in this and
Yeah, there were some other Arab countries behind it too,
yeah,
supporting and
because
facilitating the relationship.
oh, the Emirat has
Yeah,
its own intention.
yeah.
The Turkey has its own intention. But let's understand that the Horn of Africa is the most important region in the world. In the world,
Yeah.
if people don't know what that means, is let me just put it this way: all powers in the world is in Horn of Africa.
And
Uh,
Djibouti especially, everybody has.
that small angle basically controls
Yeah,
the trade of the world.
yeah, well
So
yeah.
it's very very crucial. So every region is
The
where the
Bab
money.
el Mandeb, the Suez Canal, the Indian Ocean, the Red
So
Sea,
if Horn of Africa, whoever controls Horn of Africa controls
controls the world.
the world. So let's put that thing to bed, because our people are so naive. Things that, oh, there's a war between TPLF and the Ethiopia. Oh, there's a war between Ethiopia and Eritrea. Oh, there's a war between Somalia and Ethiopia. Oh, this is what it's nothing to do with each other, because these people are brothers. These people are sisters. They have been living together for generations and centuries. Until the West came, we did not have this problem. But having said that, we have to learn what's happened. So who is better for our countries? It is determines how the lives of and our people are getting better. So understanding the geopolitics is important. Understanding the political system and how policies work is another thing. One thing that I was so disappointed with the current administration, as much as they're doing a great job in terms of, and as much as I support from the beginning, and I still am a big fan of the Abiy for the first time when he came to power, is that it seems like it's a one-man show. It seems like everybody else are foot soldiers rather than the thinkers, rather than people that who understand international policy, rather than a lot of diplomats left and ran away or quit because they say that they were not aware of it. No, the foreign ministers did not have any advance notice when the prime minister was going to Asmara and making the deal. He just made that deal on his own. And
Right?
there is no government that ever does that, because
No?
there
Mhm.
has to be a process. The prime minister gives a policy direction to the foreign ministers. The foreign ministers take that policy, come up solutions, come up scenarios, present that. The prime minister agrees and approves. They disseminate that information. They already do all the lay grounds. None of that happened. So, and that is one of the reasons that we are in this mess. It has nothing to do with anything else other than not having a cohesive government. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you hit the nail, Yasin. Um, what is common of these three leaders? The Eritrea leader, the Ethiopian prime minister, and the Somalian prime minister. What's common is if you see Eritrea or Isaias Afwerki, that country do not have even constitution until now. There has never been election in that country for the last 30 years. They don't believe in elections. They don't believe in democracy. It's a one-man show. It's considered like a monarchy. They don't call it. Even after he's getting older now, now he's trying to pass the baton to his son. That's how he is. That's a monarchy without calling it a monarchy. And okay, what's Formaggio trying to do?
He tried it. It's
He
not working.
He's try- I believe in the wisdom of the Somali people. They will not let him do that. But he is trying to copy Isaias and try to change the constitution, okay, and to go for re-election, even though it is not fair election, to run more than 2 times, something like that. He did it. He prolonged the election the way the Ethiopian prime minister did. And what's in the minds of our prime minister, Abiy Ahmed? He considers that he is here by destiny. His mother told him to be the seventh king of Ethiopia. Oh, he is serious. He's not joking.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
tells you that if somebody is saying I'm destined to be your leader, he's not ready to live through election, if there is. So these people have something common that they want to rule, and that their style of government doesn't fit the Western world, the liberal democracy, the freedom of speech, free and fair election, democratic government. So they have to find, they created a conflict, honestly, with the West. No, the West, they don't want to lose Ethiopia. That I know. They don't want to lose Ethiopia. Losing Ethiopia is losing Africa. They know it.
Yeah. So if
So,
let's agree that the West will not let go Ethiopia for sure.
yeah, yeah.
The West, we're not going to say that they are permanent friends or friends of Ethiopia, but they are interest friends.
Interest friends, of course, yes.
So, and China and they're not enemy of Ethiopia, but at the
No.
same time, no one the admiration of a dictator. For me, I don't buy it. So, and are you telling me that the China that basically imprisoned over millions of Muslims and put a concentration camp is going to do anything better, or the Emirat that who just monarchies and kings that who basically hold power and manipulate their the individual rights and all that. The Turkish, as long as I like the strong leadership from Erdogan, but I don't see. I don't admire one man ruling the country for a long, just switching, or Russia, who basically want to stay in power forever. And on another hand, the West themselves, they always like one. They like one dictator that they can deal with it all the time. We know that, okay. But what they don't like is a dictator that who does not listen to them. So
Yeah.
it,
Well,
but where the people like us and came to the power is advocating uh, at least cohesive policy, cohesive international. The president of international, international arena is. You have to have a strong leadership. It's not a strong leadership. It's strong diplomatic, strong diplomats that who understands where the wind is going. You need to read in between lines. So and this is where I want the segue to be. Right now, the international community was keep saying it that the war has to stop. Eritrea must withdraw. I mean, Tigrayan military must withdraw from all places, the positions they hold. The Ethiopian government must stop the war and open all access for humanitarian aid. The Eritrean government has to withdraw from Ethiopia. All that they've been saying it for a year, and it seems like the UN General Assembly has. The UN Council has had a meeting, pressure everybody. For the first time, the Ethiopian military is winning the war. The TPLF is withdrawing it. Um, how can they learn the mistakes that they have made before and take this opportunity and win at least the narrative of the day without I'm just purely right now saying this thing uh, from politics perspective, not because of from my humanitarian activism and all that, but from political perspective.
are you asking me about the Ethiopian side or the Western side?
Let's go with either or, but the Ethiopian side.
Yeah, we always forget things that as what happened like a few years ago, even a few months ago. That's a problem on our side. I mean, when the Ethiopian people. What was China's relationship with the TPLF when TPLF was in power? China was the most confident country for TPLF, and they had a business empire in one region of China. And so you must when he was a diplomat in China
Foreign minister.
representing Ethiopia, all the TPLF surrogates were retreating money, the international donations, the development money, and everything foreign currency was illegally transferred to the Chinese banks through the TPLF surrogates. That's
Yeah.
fact. Everybody knows it. And China has been, nobody thinks that China will betray TPLF, right? But what's the position of China today?
Yeah.
Now TPLF is accusing China of siding on Abiy Ahmed's regime. So you could see from this perspective that China has a national interest of its own. Countries do not have permanent friends and enemies. You got power and money, you are their friends. It's as simple as that. It's the same thing works for the West too. When Malala Zenawi was the prime minister for so many those years, he played the diplomatic position not for the interest of Ethiopian nation, for his own benefit, his party's benefit. He was playing between the West and
East. Yeah.
East. He was a friend with China, and he was a friend with America and others. He played the politics very well for his own party's advantage, of course. The problem now is the current government's problem now is they couldn't hold both sides. and try to be balance the diplomatic and foreign relationship with the international community, be it West or East. Abiy has a philosophy of either you are with me or
or
you are
against
my
me.
enemy. That doesn't work. There is no
Yeah.
permanent enemy in diplomacy, and there is no permanent friend. And what matters is your national interest if you are a nationalist. But if you have a personal interest, that's a problem. When you try to combine your personal interest with a national interest, then that's where the problem comes.
When I realized the Ethiopian government's foreign policy is in crisis,
Crisis.
was when they tried to persona non grata to the UN representatives. So, and that has never heard before.
Yeah.
They were not diplomats, and you telling them that non-diplomats are have a persona non grata and they have to leave. That was disaster.
They couldn't even defend it. The UN Secretary General in that meeting requested the UN representative for Ethiopia. He requested the Prime Minister personally to give him the facts that the UN staffs had did something wrong in your country in violation of our agreement. I will take action. And he asked him in front of the Security Council.
Yeah, and that's the sad part. And I just saw that the UN representatives of Ethiopia in the UN speaking, and he cannot even speak, cannot even read.
No, no,
So
we have a lot of problem, Yasin.
just like, and who sends that? May, as much as I love individuals that who are talented, if you cannot deliver, if you cannot convince, if you cannot speak proper English, you shouldn't be there at all. So those kind of stuff
It
is failure.
is not only in the diplomatic area, it's all the PR area. If you see the PR area, there was uh, the conflict zone. There was one guy, Zadik Abraha, who was the state minister of something. He was on TV yesterday with a British journalist, I guess. So he was asked, was there any people in the military who are already faced justice because of the rape charges and other things? We know that there are military people who are already faced, but he didn't know the information. He couldn't defend. He didn't say it. So if
It's,
you
it's
don't know
that's why that's
information,
that's
you
the
don't have to
frustration
be
I
there.
have. Even when the media person for the girl from Canada, when she was speaking on CNN, it was disaster. It
It's
was
disaster.
extremely disaster. And then they went to a Fox News, and others are just publicizing all Fox, the enemy of. How do you go to Fox News and give them an interview and expect that you have a preference for the Biden administration? It is just.
Well, they think that they will make a trade for the Democratic Party so that they can come and beg you to be
Yeah, and I just why do you need to fight? It's just it's just ridiculous. Anyway, we go just let's conclude because
yeah.
we hammer a lot and we highlight, but I hope they learn uh, and rethink and reshuffle the whole foreign minister of Ethiopia if they want to succeed internationally, because this is disaster. I think the
It's
deputy.
not only the foreign relations staff, it's all the party officials and the government or state officials who are going to the media and speaking against the foreign powers, saying that we don't need their medications for COVID. Uh, Shimalis Abdisa said it once. We don't need their weight. But the next
Not
day,
only Mustafa, even I was just
yeah.
surprised how he's
So,
talking
yeah,
and becoming anti-West. It's just like, what is wrong with you people?
yeah,
Uh, the
it's
narrative, the foreign policies, or anyone who wants to speak about foreign issues is supposed to go to the right channel. The foreign ministers
it.
and
Talk to
everybody
him,
else.
get appointment, talk to the president of the United States if you want to get his attention. But instead, when the United States president sent his delegate to Ethiopia, the
You
prime
hide
minister,
from it, and
you
then
hide
see
from him not
you
to
don't
talk
want to
to him,
meet,
and
and
you send a lower level staff, and you brag in your cadres and media people, activists, and saying that the prime minister, he didn't want to talk to him, he showed power or something like that. Oh, give me a break. Is it showing power? Really, we have power? Uh,
it's
don't
disrespect,
understand.
and they think, and this the West will laugh and smile
Laugh at
and have a drink,
you.
but they will never forget. They will
Yeah.
punish you as the goodwill of the prime minister's government is gone. We know that for international community.
But we don't want that gone, that harm our country. That's the problem. We don't
Yeah,
care about him. You see, the problem is when people are going to the media and shout that no more US, no more West, you telling them that you support this regime to be against the Western countries for something unsubstantiated reasons. Um, you better know what you are wishing for your country. But if your country is first and your benefit of the national interest is first, you shouldn't care about the prime minister. You shouldn't care about who the party leader is. What you should care is the sustainable, the long-term relationship of Ethiopia with the other countries. Period. So for this, I don't see Ethiopians to be out of the uh, global coalition of the countries, be it UN, African Union. They tried even to create a Pan-African movement, to look like they are creating a Pan-African movement against the West, against their dollar, against blah.
and we
Hey,
know that the person
this is Gaddafi tried.
Gaddafi. That's what I was gonna say. So,
Saddam tried. You know what happened.
so we know what happened, the road for that, but to
No.
come back to the point that you were saying, it that it's time for people to understand what is
Your best
what
interest.
international relationship is,
Yeah.
and at the same time who's your enemies and who's your foes, so
What can
friends.
you do? What's your capability to?
Exactly.
What's
And
your capability? Without the international community, what's your capability? Can you sustain even?
yeah. So in a nutshell, we'll just wrap it up. So for lastly, let's talk about that letter, and what do you think that will it do anything for the TPLF's cause, and how soon do you think that peace and reconciliation or peace negotiations will start happening, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, someone friend of mine sent it to me now. I didn't analyze it very well, but I've seen that the Mr. Debretsion signed paper, which is about 40 pages, was sent to Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations. Um, they're saying that they withdrew from all Amhara and Afar areas and moved their troops back to the Tigray region, and we want peace and reconciliation now. That's nutshell. That's their content of letter. There are a lot of things that they wrote. Well, um, I don't want to go too deep at this time because when they say they, number one, were they forced out or do they leave the Amara region and Afar region by their own? What we are hearing is they were forced out by force. Well, let whatever name they give it, if they are they moved out from all over uh, the territories they already occupied? I don't think so. There are a lot of areas that are still under their control, um, which I know. So it's not complete. Number one. Number two, And what's next? What's next? And how would we make sure that such things will not be repeated again? That one region will not be a threat for the security of the nation as a whole. So we shall see. We shall see what response will go is going to be by the federal government, because they are mentioning that they mentioned about Western Tigray is still under occupation, but in the eyes of the Amhara region and Amhara people, they believe that that part of the land was taken illegally by the TPLF by force and is retaken. Will that be settled through negotiation? Very much doubtful. When they say they moved out from Wallo, north and south, did they move out from Raya, which they Amaras believe that it was occupied illegally again in 1983? Uh, so all those things are still on the table. So there are,
As much as I'm saddened that the war, there's a lot of tons of thousands and lives and everything has been
yeah,
lost and
it's sad.
destructed. And as much as I'm mad about the reason the whole war started, I'm hopeful that I'm glad that they withdraw. I'm glad that they lost the war, or whatever the case is, uh, and uh, and I'm glad. I'm hopeful that the minds will be this time at least the mindset will be different, because war is not a solution, and I hope we
It's
solve
not.
it through
Yeah,
dialogue.
me too. I believe in that. You and me discussed it in the previous sessions that there must be a peaceful settlement. Should this has been settled peacefully like a year ago, would have saved hundreds of thousands of people's lives, and the destruction of the uh, developments and hospitals and clinics and communities. Uh, the toll of the war was so much on both
Yeah,
sides. The Tigrayan kids died like um, once people told me that from that area, I cannot tell you the death toll on both sides is very huge, and it's
absolutely,
sad. Yeah,
absolutely. And I
it's
keep
sad.
saying that
Yeah, it's sad.
Killing Ethiopians is just the
Killing
sad
it
thing.
is our black history.
Yeah,
It will be written in our history in a very
and
dark
and
letter, saying
for
that
people
yeah,
to think that we're taking sides for
no,
this, it's just
there's no
it's
side.
the
We were
biggest
brothers.
stupidity and all
I
that.
don't care what people will feel it. I have uh, some
The-
perspective that the Tigrayans people, I consider them like brothers and sisters still, but there are rogue elements, bad elements who created this for the last 30 years. We never had in our history that people kill each other. We had two governments that was transferred peacefully without very few bloodsheds. But this time, man, the atrocities, we are talking only about Tigray and versus other fights. We forget fights that are going on everywhere in Walaga, in Benshangul, Kirlel, in with Somalis and Afars, in Somalis and Oromia. All these things, there must be something wrong with the system that the TPLF planted in 1983. So we Ethiopians need to think what went wrong in this system and how do we fix it. And it's not only about Tigray; it's about it's all over the nation. This
we have to re-examine everything, and we have to
everything we
go
have.
to
Yeah,
the root cause of this problem. And it's not for one individual or one
no.
government or administration. It's for all of us if we're going to live.
If you leave it like this, look what's going on now. We're trying to get rid of the TPLF, who is the mastermind of these institutions.
and then we
The
choose
same
another
thing
master.
the Oromia are trying to replace TPLF hegemony. The same thing in a worse form. trying to change language, trying to change identities, trying to change. Oh, it has to stop. It has to stop for
Yeah,
everybody.
that will be another day. We don't want to touch that. This time today was I just see Hamdi's comment about politics is a real drama. You guys are disagreeing just for the sake of disagreement. Plena made a good interview with CNN and Fox. They were trying to cut her
Mm,
off. She was calm and made a good point. No, that's not what we're talking about. What
yeah,
we were talking about is that how, first of all, why do you need to go to the media? When you go to the media, how do you represent the country? What is the talking points that you're trying to sell?
mhm.
Who do you give the interview? What narrative that you want to do? Why are you in this mess from the first? So we just want to re-examine and we want to criticize our government and try to make sure that they learn from their mistakes and do not repeat the same things.
That's true.
So that's where I'm going to stop. At Nafu, I'll give you the last word. And we'll discuss about, we'll examine as well next week the current, we'll choose a topic. And if you have suggestions, topics that you want us to talk about it, please post it and we will discuss about it. And your final words.
Well, uh, we touched everything almost for today's topic, but our audience need to understand that engagement is critical, and criticizing the government's action is a duty of active citizens who knows mm, information and specialities. So we don't give it to them so that we lose our country and we increase the suffering of our people. So when we try to root out one group, we have to make sure that no other group will replace that type of hegemony in our country. That's my worry now in my country. When people are trying to drumbeat and try to blindly support the prime minister and the PP party, uh, when they feel that they are winning the war and they give them 100% support without trying to focus on what's going on in the country, inside, in the administration, the corruption. Okay, and when we when we lose eye from such activities, it will be too late to correct the action. It's because of that character that TPLF managed to rule the country for the last 27 years. And we don't want another region to do the same thing and destroy our country and people and our people's hope for the next year. And in terms of the foreign diplomacy, please try to rethink our who are the best. Yeah, there is no one part of friend and one part of enemy. It's diplomacy, and we can be friends of China and friends of America at the same time. That's how the proper diplomacy should work. Not to create enemies of the West. That's not to the best interest of our people. No, we have seen the Soviet era. I was educated in the Soviet Union too. I was military and I was there in Kiev, and I know this system in the Soviet era, and they stayed 17 years in the Ethiopian government, and we know how economically Ethiopia was during those days. And I don't aspire that type of government style for my country anymore. We need liberal democracy. We need, with its respective failures and weaknesses, there is no better government than liberal democracy for the developing countries like ours. So don't rush to create the Westerns as enemies. They are not. If they when they say stop the war, we have been crying out stop the war too. That's the friends that you get from your friends that you get advice, such advice. No country will say go and fight, destroy this group over the other. You cannot destroy 6 million people and forge peace. Everybody knows that. So because they say that, that doesn't mean that they are supporting TPLF. That's
Okay.
very naive. to think that way. So when you say no more, please make sure that what you wish for is to the best interest of the Ethiopian people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave it that. Only adding that they shouldn't be closing any diplomatic embassies around the world. They should be increasing it. The Ethiopian foreign government.
With competent people, though.
Yeah. So with that,
if they have people like they have now, it's better to close it. Honestly, it's waste money. They're wasting their money.
No, we have to rethink, and then attract diaspora people and make sure that those who learn the system for international, how the international system works, should be leading some of those things. Thank you, Aknafu.
Thank you.
Until next week, we'll leave it there.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.